Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all for joining us tonight for this important Montclair Board of Education Candidates Forum. My name is Jennifer Escobar, and it is a privilege to help open this event as we come together to hear directly from the individuals who hope to serve our schools, our students, and our community. We are honored to have Linda Cow, our moderator this evening, and also the president of the Montclair PTA Council, who will be guiding tonight's conversations with insight and fairness. This forum is made possible through the support and collaboration of several community partners. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Montclair PTA Council, Montclair NAACP, Montclair Civil Rights Commission, Montclair CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Council, and Out Montclair. And we also want to give a very special thank you to Principal Major Jennings and Assistant Principal Nisha Gandhi for graciously opening Buzz Aldrin Middle School to us and providing the space for civic engagement. Yeah. Tonight you will hear from our Board of Education candidates, Yvonne Bucknight, Bugnite, Chrissy Thomas, Milt Horowitz, Sean Long, and Carrie McMahon as they share their priorities, values, and vision for Montclair's public schools. Thank you again for being here, for staying engaged, and for helping to shape the future of education in our community. I will now turn the microphone over to our moderator, Linda.
Thank you, Jennifer. I wanted, before we get started on our forum, just want to acknowledge that today was a really hard day for many of our educators and today was a really tough day for many of our educators. Many of you may be aware that notices about impact for reduction in force went out today. So many of our educators went home with heavy hearts, but many are also working tonight as parent-teacher conferences are just about wrapping up in this building and others in the district. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we are holding our teachers in our hearts today. So I thank you all for coming out tonight. We have to accommodate as many parents as we could who are attending parent-teacher conferences. We're starting a little bit late, and we have a very tight schedule. So we've asked our panelists also to keep their answers as succinct and to the point as possible. I want to also just say that in choosing the questions to pose tonight, we were kept in mind the organizations that have come together to organize tonight's forum. There have been other interviews, other forums, other opportunities for the candidates to speak. And so our questions tonight, we tried to have some questions that are a little bit different that you may not have heard before to speak to issues that are of concern to our constituents. But of course, the big elephant in the room is the budget deficit, and we're not going to try to skirt around that tonight. Each of our panelists has been asked to prepare an opening statement of 2 minutes in which they'll also share with you their vision for Montclair Public Schools. And I've also given them the first question so they can include that in their opening statement. The first question is, as a potential Board of Education member, what actions or approaches will you suggest the board initiate to rebuild trust between the institution and the community you seek to serve? I'm going to start with Ms. I hope it's okay that I'm going to be a little informal and call everyone by their first names tonight. I'm going to ask Yvonne to start us off, and then we will rotate who answers questions first as we go through that.
Good evening, everyone. Rebuilding trust starts with openness, honesty, and listening to the people we serve. If I'm elected to continue serving, I'll focus on 3 things that matter most to our community. First, financial transparency. We're facing a $19 million deficit, and that's serious. But we can rebuild confidence by being completely open about how we got here and how we're fixing it. I'll push for clear, regular updates, not pages of numbers, but plain language reports that anyone, even me, can understand. People deserve to see that we're being responsible for every single dollar spent. Secondly, real community engagement is really important to me. Trust can't be rebuilt behind closed doors. It happens when we invite you, the community, and people in. One step that the board has taken is to operate in public as a committee of the whole. I also want to see more town halls, student and parent advisory groups, and true two-way communication. Because when families, educators, and community members have a voice, we make smarter, stronger decisions together. And third, I will keep, and I always have kept, students at the heart of every decision that I've made as a board member. Financial recovery is important, but our true bottom line is student success. That means protecting classrooms, resources, improving literacy and achievement, and sharing our progress openly so that families see real results. At the end of the day, rebuilding trust means leading with transparency, integrity, and a relentless focus on our children. If we do that consistently and authentically, we can restore confidence, strengthen our schools, and move this district forward together. Thank you.
Thank you. Milt?
I'm Milt Horowitz, and I agree with Yvonne. Exactly, she's absolutely right. I would also add treating the members of the community with respect and answering the questions openly and honestly. I do think it's important to have a complete forensic audit to find out what happened, because if you don't know what happened, then it's difficult to repair it. And so, and I think that any ideas that the community might have in order to make that possible, I think is very important. And I'll pass it on to Sean.
Sorry. Okay. Before I introduce myself, I do also want to take a moment just to acknowledge any Montclair School District employees that have been impacted. I want to recognize how difficult of a time this is, and I want to thank you for your dedication to the students. With that, my name is Sean Long. So I'm a business executive. I serve on the board of the Montclair YMCA, and I'm a dad. But again, I'm not here for my kids. I'm running for the Montclair Board of Education because I believe Montclair's students deserve schools that prepare them to excel in the classrooms and in life. I bring two particular skills to this space: executive experience and board experience. In my view, our district's strategic plan, it does have the right general priorities, but not the right measurements to drive accountability and real progress. Strategy without metrics will not deliver the outcomes for our kids and for our families. We talked a little bit about the budget already today. Again, for too long, we have kicked the can down the road. We cannot continue with these short-term patches and fixes. We need to address the long-term structural work in the budget that aligns every dollar to student learning and classroom support. It's really important we start to have a clear plan to address that structural issue in our budget. In this mess, we also must not lose focus. High-quality instruction, safe schools, and honest communication with the public are really important. Consistency will be the key to building trust. Again, I'm running to champion student achievement, bring transparency to our finances, and ensure we hold ourselves accountable. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to the Montclair PTA Council, to the NAACP, to CPAC, the Civil Rights Commission, and to Out Montclair for hosting us tonight. These forums are a great way to keep your members informed about the different candidates, but also they're very helpful for us as candidates to hear directly from you about what your concerns are. So thank you for hosting us tonight. My name is Carrie McMahon. My wife and I moved to Montclair over a decade ago to raise our kids in a socioeconomically diverse town with great schools and the Montclair core values of seeing diversity as a strength and equity as a necessity. I have 3 kids currently in the Montclair Public Schools at Watchung Elementary and at Buzz Aldrin Middle School right here. I'm running for the Board of Ed because I've seen firsthand the issues that are impacting our district, and I would like to be part of the solution. Professionally, I have worked in the pharmaceutical industry in regulatory affairs for 15 years, and as the name suggests, the regulatory department interprets regulations, rules, and guidances and ensures that our company is in compliance with them. Compliance will be relevant for the board for this coming term. I'm also someone who leans into community service. I have board experience serving on the board of a local nonprofit called Impact 100 Essex, and the board of my church down the street, St. James Episcopal Church. I served as a 2-year term as PTA president at Watchung School and have co-chaired several committees, including the SATP committee. That work enabled me to collaborate with teachers and administrators to find the most effective ways to benefit the school and the students. And at this moment, the top priority for our district is the $20 million budget deficit and balancing the budget with as little impact as possible to the students and staff. And as was already acknowledged just this morning, over 100 staff members received notifications about terminated positions or being reassigned. There's a lot of uncertainty and confusion out there, but there's one thing I'm 100% certain on. I want to be part of this next 3 years on the school board for our students, our teachers, and taxpayers. Thank you very much.
I also want to start off by acknowledging that today 100 staff got their notices, and it's heartbreaking. For me, rebuilding trust starts with showing up, listening, and following through. When emails don't get answered, when Oprahs go unfulfilled, when meetings get canceled, trust disintegrates. I'm running because I want every family in Montclair to believe that their voice matters. Even when times feel uncertain, like right now, there's someone they can write in with an MBA, a master's in public policy, and a law degree who's listening, shows up, and will follow through for them. Too often, taxpayers, families, teachers, and students feel unheard and confused. That's not Montclair. As a board member, I'll advocate for clear public communication as our modus operandi, publishing plain language summaries of board actions, holding community forums, and ensuring parents and staff have meaningful opportunities to give input before decisions are finalized. I really support the board's collaborative relationship with the superintendent in holding the private meetings in public so our community can see how decisions are made. Ms. Turner's on the right track. I know this district. I went to school here, K through 12. I understand what makes it special. As a parent of a current student living with crumbling infrastructure, out-of-date technology, declining test scores, and a $12 to $19 million deficit, I understand that we need to get back to a unique approach that strategically built equity into every aspect of a magnet school education. My MBA and MPP helped me to understand budgets and data. My law degree helps me to understand legal parameters. As the daughter of immigrants of color who wanted to age in Montclair and as a solo practitioner and single mother, I understand the importance of a fixed budget and practical solutions. As a PTA mom, I understand tapping into the genius of talented citizenry to forge the most innovative path forward. I believe in aligning smart spending with our community values. I'll ask the same tough questions you would. That's why I'm running. This is our district, and we can make Montclair a shining example. Write in Chrissy Thomas for Board of Education. Montclair made, ready to lead, committed to the success of our schools and our town.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for those thoughtful answers in your opening statements. The next question is, serving on the Board of Education takes collaborative effort. Collaboration requires board members to work with the superintendent, your fellow board members, and community stakeholders to ensure the board is serving the community appropriately and successfully. What experiences or expertise do you have that prepares you for this type of collaboration? And I'm going to ask Milt if you would start us off on this one.
I've served on several boards previously with Peace Action and the World Fellowship Center, primarily dealing with finance. And on the board, it's an intricate dance between finance and curriculum, because curriculum depends on the money, and how the money is allocated defines the curriculum. So in order to be able to get a majority of the board online, I believe I can have an influence to present my ideas and be willing to compromise, as it takes, as I said, 5 people to be able to make these kinds of changes. So one person can't do this alone.
Thank you.
So collaboration. So one of the examples I would offer up from collaboration when I think about what that looks like in practice. As I shared, I sit on the board of the Montclair YMCA. What I'll share is collaboration is not just with the board and its CEO, but also with the community. A recent example is at the Y. I don't know if we have any swimmers here or parents of swimmers, but the swim team did not have swim caps for young children that might have, particularly young black girls with braids, and this was brought to me by the community. And when I think about collaboration, for me, starts with listening to the community, understanding the role that you play on the board, being able to share that back, understanding what policies are in place, and being able to advocate effectively to get results, not just for the organization, but for the community that you serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with collaboration, I have been a part of teams my whole life, starting from youth sports as a kid, and I'm actually a coach of youth sports right now. But in a professional sense, in regulatory affairs, you have to take information from every single department across the company and compile that information into one big data package that is a compelling, persuasive argument to the health authority that talks about why the product is safe and why it's effective and why people know how to use it properly. So that goes, you then have to interact with a variety of personalities, a variety of people who have different motivators, and be able to harness that energy and move it forward in one direction. One thing that I'm really heartened about by this budget deficit that we've had right now is that we have so many folks that are willing to step up and offer their services and their expertise and their talents, and I think that collaboration is going to be imperative for us moving forward together. Thank you.
I'm a coach, I'm a mediator. I've always been someone who fights for justice, for transparency, and for truth. I've never been one to follow the herd or to go along to get along or who stays silent when I see something amiss. I promise to speak up, not shut up, because that's who I am. At this singular moment, my personality might be even more important than my deep connections to the Montclair schools and my professional experience. Excuse me?
Sorry about that, Chrissy.
Sorry.
The parent-teacher conferences are still happening, so
I'm old
bear
enough
with
to
us
put on
for
my
a moment.
glasses to hear better. But I can work with anybody, and I will work with everybody to try and make the Montclair schools everything that they should be.
Collaboration is key. I've served as a member of this Montclair Board of Education for the past 2 years. I've worked very closely with Superintendent Turner over the course of the last 3 months that she has been here working and collaborating with us. I've worked in many committees, not only here as a school board, but as an educator. I was a trainer, so I had to work with some teachers that were not so ready to work with me because I was sent in to make a difference in the learning styles and to show teachers best practices. So I was able to make a difference in that way. I am a listener, so I don't just work where I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm here to see how we can work together to make things better for the students that I'm serving.
Okay, thank you all. That makes me hopeful that we are going to have a smoother process going forward. The next set of questions is pertaining to finances or the budget. How will you reassure the community that you will read and understand the proposed budget each year? What will you do to ensure that the community understands the process and what role they can play? And I'm going to ask Sean to start us off.
No, all good. And just so I'm clarifying the question, how will I ensure I'm able to read the budget?
That you will read and understand the budget fully before you're asked to vote on it.
Yeah, okay. That's really important. So you do need to be able to read and understand the budget before. So a couple things need to happen, right? You need to make sure that you have the budgets in a timely manner, right? So that is step one. You have to have them in a timely manner. So that's really important. I do think you also, for me, one of the things I think about is using available technology to better understand and process large sets of data. When I think about some of the Gen AI tools, I use often ChatGPT or Claude to process large data sets. That's something that's available to us today to synthesize and process large sets of information. That is something I use professionally. I'd continue to use in this board capacity as well to understand the data, synthesize, as well as really understand where we have deviances that I believe should be called out. Anything that has a deviation of 2 to 3% should be flagged and called out for us to review as a board as well as a community. So those are some of the ways I would start to think about identifying and using available technology to understand and provide more visibility.
Thank you.
Yep.
Carrie?
And was there a second piece about ensuring the public?
The second piece was what will you do to ensure that the community understands the process, the budget process, and what role they can play?
Thank you. There was a Budget 101 that kind of a presentation that was offered a few years ago, I want to say, and I think that type of presentation or community forum would be very helpful. We have a lot of eyes that are on the budget right now, and everyone is very engaged. It's hitting us in our most important places with our kids and in our wallets. So I think that we have a lot of people who are very concerned. So I would say getting some kind of a Budget 101 course for the public, for the community, but also part of the budget that I would love to see is data going back 5 years and also some projections moving forward of this seems to be where we are getting caught up in our budgeting for the current year, but also trying to make projections for the year ahead. So that's what I'd focus on. Thank you.
I think we need to know how we got here. There's been a lot of blame shifting from those who've seen this disastrous situation unfold under their watch and no explanation as to why we should trust them again. We need some form of forensic audit. Otherwise, we're doomed to repeat the past. You can't just have a little bit of transparency. You have to tell people the truth within the limits of the law, even if that truth is not what people want to hear. We need a shared vision for what we want, and the last thing we need right now is for decisions to be made without community input. I'll ask the public for their help in making creative decisions about what to do, just like we did when we faced the challenges of segregation. I'll work with our insurance companies to see if there's a way to make a forensic audit happen for free as part of ongoing litigation. I'll scour the budget with my fellow board members and the superintendent while also making it a priority to reach out to all the stakeholders in the community. These stakeholders include parents, teachers, those who work in central office, nurses, security staff, etc. I would encourage working with the unions to cut costs because insurance and benefits are going up faster than our taxes. We know exactly where we are. Once we know exactly where we are, we can work with the stakeholders to find out what's necessary and what's not. Moving forward, we'll make spending more transparent and deliberate, not just reactive.
Thank you, Chrissy.
To ensure the timeliness of a budget, I think it really has to start now. You can't wait to the last minute to review the information that's before us. It should take 6 to 8 months to deliver a balanced budget. And so it's important that we are not waiting to the last minute. That's one. Number two, it's important that it's in friendly terms so that people have an understanding of what the numbers mean as it relates to student achievement. That is our goal, to make sure that students are achieving. And therefore, that money needs to be directed to student achievement. Webinars are really important, training for the board members as well as the community. Those are the things that I will stand behind if I am reelected for the Board of Education. Thank you.
The town has its assets and liabilities. It's very much like your home and how you budget. You have liabilities and you have assets. You have income and outflow. And that's exactly what the board has to deal with. The number of students, the number of staff, what the salaries are, what the maintenance costs, all those things have to come into play. And also what happens if something unintended happens, or something like that. So it's all these numbers that have to be put together in a coherent way, and to find out, what all the priorities are, including what the town wants, what you as the community want for your children, and then that has to be put into, numbers and budget so that we have the appropriate way of dealing with the expenses.
Thank you. Our next question. Please explain the approach you would use when saying no to particular programming and staffing requests due to budget constraints. Carrie, can you start us off?
Yes. The approach to saying no. Okay, well, I think one of the very exciting things about this time that I mentioned in my last answer, but 1 minute is short. We got to fit a lot into just 1 minute. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit more here, but is the formalization of an ad hoc citizen advisory committee. So I think that there are other New Jersey towns that they form this kind of advisory committee group. It's made up of residents of the town that have expertise and talent in a specific area, therefore acute short-term challenges that the district is facing. It's not meant to substitute for long-term areas, but this type of committee, I think, would be incredibly valuable in getting community partnership, in rebuilding trust, in increasing transparency, and increasing communication. I think that you need a very good justification for why you would say no. I think you need some data and some numbers because the community is going to have a lot of pushback on things that are special and near and dear to their hearts. And my time's up. 1 minute is over already.
I understand that part of my job is going to include saying no. We see where saying yes got us. I'm fully prepared to say no and to understand that people are going to be upset about it. The situation is extremely upsetting, and many people are going to be hurt due to past mismanagement. I can handle saying no, and I can take the blame. I can also read, I can count, and I can budget. I'm good at it. The well-being of our children and the affordability of our town are at stake. We don't just say no willy-nilly. We use data-driven facts, and we make choices based on what works, not what we think works.
Saying no is not easy, but it's important as a board member to look at the wants versus the needs and make sure that that is aligned with the strategic plan. And so when we talk about saying no, you have to listen. The community does have concerns. You have to listen to all stakeholders, that being admin, students are very important. Their voice is, I think, the most important because they talk in different ways. They talk not only out loud, because they'll talk to you and tell you just what they are feeling, but also data is very important to make sure that you have that as at the forefront of every decision that's being made as a board member.
I think it's just have to be truthful about what the circumstances are, and that if you have to say no or you have to, you can say yes. It just depends on what resources you have, and take into consideration all the parties that are involved, including students, salaries, of teachers, and all that comes into mind. So we have limited resources, and so you have to say no to some of the things.
So what I would offer is you start by looking at the impact to student outcomes. Then you'd look at the financial trade-offs, and finally you'd communicate clearly with the community. Would be my approach.
Thank you. Our next question: even if the two questions posed in the special election pass, the district must The district must make strategic cuts and identify possible district revenue sources to achieve financial sustainability. What ideas do you have for cuts and potential revenue sources that can help guide Montclair Public Schools towards a more fiscally sustainable future? Chrissy, will you start us off?
Sure. Unfortunately, at this moment, we first have to get back to basics, balancing the budget, figuring out needs versus wants, not settling for mediocrity. With the current budget shortfall, we're at risk of losing the magnet system entirely. To me, it's irresponsible to talk about all the wonderful programs we can launch or continue, like our restorative justice program, when these are sure to be cut. Our focus right now needs to be on financial stability, and this focus will sadly continue for all 4 years of my service because of the crater that we've fallen into. I'm not rich, and I want to stay in Montclair, but it's hard. And I think that we all need to, well, that's enough.
That's a great question. It's important to evaluate the programs that we are trying to implement and work to make sure that they are successful. Grants, also, that's another way to make sure that whatever is not in the budget can be funded through grants. It's really important to make sure that you are constantly looking at what it is that we are doing, and is it going to be something that is going to help to sustain the achievement of the students, the success of the district, and knowing that it's important to evaluate the programs just to make sure that they are working and successful.
I agree that grants are very important, and perhaps a grant writer, if some of you might be grant writers, we could use your help. I think the most important part for me would be to examine it from the top down and see where the administration might be top-heavy, and eliminate some of the positions that might be unnecessary at this point. So I think that the students are very important, and financing that, and maintaining good teachers. So I think those are the most important parts of what a budget should maintain.
I'd like to just build a little bit on the idea of this community advisory council. One of the things I would share is I do believe there is an important opportunity to identify, evaluate, and recommend strategies to generate sustainable non-tax revenue in the Montclair Public School through partnerships, facility optimizations, and innovative funding models. So this does take some strategic framework that we need to put in place. As I think about the roles and the kind of work that would need to go into place to deliver against that, all things really need to be in the consideration set. But it does take, in addition to when you think about setting that up, the right operating model to be able to have folks with the right areas of expertise to be able to deliver against that and inform not just the board, but the administration as well to start to drive some of these additional revenue outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. I also think that leveraging that community advisory committee for this exact thing is going to be very helpful. We already have a lot of informal working groups going on that are trying to do this exact thing of how can we generate new revenue into the budget, and how do we decrease some of our really big expenses. So one of the things that one of the aspects that people are considering right now in an informal way are aspects of things like busing. Perhaps we should own our own fleet of buses. Perhaps we should consider optimizing the bus routes. Let's talk about how we can reduce some of those costs. I think it's a $15 million cost this year is busing. So finding ways to reduce some of those expenses would be helpful, along with generating new revenue like sponsorships and donations. So formalizing that would be great.
Okay. The next question just is asking you to expand on some of those thoughts there. What changes would you support in board policies pertaining to corporate sponsorship, gifts, grants, and donations to expand grants and donation opportunities for classroom educators? Sure. Sorry. The board currently has policies on corporate sponsorship and another policy on gifts, grants, and donations. Are there any changes that you would recommend in those policies or practices to identify more opportunities for sponsorship and grants, specifically for classroom teachers?
Oh, yes. Many of the policies that come before us are mandated by the state. However, I believe that it is important to recognize that there are ways that if we can work together as a community to try to overcome some of those policies, take a really good look at that. That is a mandated policy, not only here in Montclair, but across the state of New Jersey. And so I think it's important for us to get creative. And like we have our MFEE, we have our Weston Awards, and let's do more of that. Think of other ways to optimize the funds that can help to support classroom teachers to do the innovative things that they've been doing for years in this district. Thank you.
Actually, I don't know enough about to answer this question, so I'm going to have to pass this on to Sean.
Yeah. While I'm not familiar with the policies in place today, what I would say is I would certainly advocate for reviewing of the policies. As Yvonne shared, a lot does come down to from the state that we do adopt. I would certainly advocate for us looking at as much as we can expand to support. It's a no-brainer to bring in more, particularly to support our teachers and our classrooms to deliver the work that they do for our students.
I agree. I think reviewing the policy and seeing where we can enhance or make it still fit the mandatory requirements pushed down by the state, but have it suit our purposes for now is going to be very important. Yvonne brought up the MFEE. They do incredible work in town. They offer mini grants for teachers. and just do fantastic things. I think that there's a lot of people approaching them right now to try and even expand some of the great work that they're doing, and leveraging our community partners, I think at this time is going to be very important. Thank you.
I'd want to know what the sponsorships mean and if they're positive and work with that, and we can do it within the law. Of course, we want to leverage the amazing people and organizations and corporations that are willing to help us, like MFEE, like Montclair Film, like organizations that are already in place that are great learning opportunities for our students and may even point to a way to leverage our magnets so that they're in tandem with corporations. But the whole idea of, I draw the line at where it becomes the responsibility, like where we're beholden to the sponsor.
Thank you very much. We're going to switch now to the topic of curriculum and instruction. And the first question that we have is, what policy or practice changes would you recommend to ensure equitable access to and participation in higher track courses at both the middle and high school levels, especially since support for students who may be underrepresented or have particular needs for services may be impacted by the proposed budget cuts?
I think that the resources have to be equitably applied, and I think that in order to have students in advanced courses, we have to start from the very beginning, meaning pre-K. And so that means all those resources across the board. So we have to look at individuals and we have to look at the student body as a whole in order to be able to allocate the resources in an appropriate way in order to make sure that they're meeting whatever the state says what the requirements are. So unless we change those requirements, we're stuck. So, so the resources have to be allocated in that way to make sure that starting from the very beginning that the children are prepared to handle advanced material.
Yeah, no, you're good. A couple things I would think about is I do think it has to be applied equitably across. I think there's an opportunity for, again, going back to some of the communication, right? Like as a parent, just understanding what's available for your kid sometimes can be overwhelming, right? If you're on the right WhatsApp or not, or it can be a little confusing and a little overwhelming. So whether that's your kid navigating, AP or advanced courses, or they need additional support, those things are overwhelming. So I say there's an opportunity for more clear communication. I think our website's pretty challenging to navigate, and I find myself to be somebody that's pretty savvy as it relates to being able to navigate a website. But I think the information needs to travel a little bit more clearly. I'd also say I know there's been some work in the high school for some of the AP boot camps, particularly for students of color, to bring them along. As you think about the opportunity gap, and when you look at the mix of those classes, there is certainly something that's happening along the way in the school system where the AP courses, the diversity notes, do not reflect the diversity of the school district. That is something that we do need to have additional focus on. Thank you.
I think our magnet system has an emphasis on equity. We have already some Board of Ed policies that are regarding the equity and making sure that we have equity across schools in the district. So when it comes to the technology, I would say that it's not just what tech that we have, but it's also how it's used across the schools. So I think that something that could be leveraged a little bit more is the communication of sharing best practices of what teachers are seeing and how they can share that along with their fellow teachers at other schools to make sure that it's not unique to one particular school, but that we have a consistency across the district.
Diversity is Montclair's strength, but equity has to be our goal. The achievement gap in Montclair isn't new. It's a legacy issue, and it's tied to opportunity, access, and expectations. I'm a proud graduate of the magnet system, and I know how powerful it can be when it's equitable. But I also know we've drifted from that original vision. I'd push for equity audits that go beyond test scores, looking at who has access to enrichment, advanced coursework, and experienced teachers. We need early literacy and math interventions that actually start before the gap widens. I'd also ensure our hiring and mentoring practices reflect the diversity of our community. Representation matters. Equity can't be a slogan, it's got to be a structure, and we need to rebuild it intentionally.
Could you read the question again? I just want to make sure that I'm touching on the right points.
Sure. What policy or practice changes would you recommend to ensure that equitable access to and participation in higher track courses, both the middle and high school levels?
Equity is really the heartbeat of this district in terms of diversity. However, there has to be actionable items behind that. We have implemented support for students in the high school level for AP as an AP boot camp, but I think it has to start earlier. Middle school is where it needs to start, where we are introducing not only the students but the parents to, like, why is it important for the student to take an AP course or an honors course? Also, our universal pre-K, that is a goal that we have began, and I think that is going to make a difference in building the equitable access here in this district for all students. It's going to give us the support that the students need early on so that they are ready to take the higher level courses once they get to the high school. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question, do you support including student voices in curricular decisions? If yes, how? If no, why not? Sean?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to get more voices included. The how, I think I'm open to. What I would be curious about is how that's been done in other districts. What I would share is many challenges that we face in the district are not necessarily unique, and I think our ability to communicate across and learn from other districts, there's probably an opportunity for us to just share knowledge across. So that'd be one I'd be really curious, some of the best practices that have worked well in other districts to understand what's been successful and if there's something that we can learn from to implement here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think having a student rep is very important. We have one right now that serves, he provides an update at every Board of Ed meeting as a community partner with the student representative. And actually on Sunday, Linda, you mentioned already that there will be another candidate forum with the Montclair High School students in the CGI group, along with NAACP, the youth group there. So the voices of our students should definitely be heard. It shouldn't just be an impact and a consequence. We should hear from them directly about what some of their experiences are.
I agree. Students are the biggest stakeholders in all of this, and we're doing this for them. It's not about us. So I think I've seen them at town council meetings. I've seen them at Board of Ed meetings, and there is a student representative already. I think that not including them would be a huge, grave error on our part.
Student voices are critical in everything that we are doing here in Montclair. It's important, and early on, you have to begin to listen to the student. Circle meetings, that's their first chance to understand and know how to engage in conversations, saying how they feel about different things that are happening in the classroom as well as around the school building. Student councils are a critical piece of education in getting students to voice what they like, what they don't like, and what we have to do is listen. All right, having student representation on different committees, I think is critical. I serve on the Civil Rights Commission here in Montclair. We have a student representative there. We have a student representative on the board. Their voices are necessary. It helps us to ground the work that we do. Thank you.
Would you please repeat the question? I couldn't quite get it.
Sure. We're asking if you support including student voices in curricular decisions. If yes, how? If not, if no, why not?
Yes, I would definitely try to get a student on the board as a representative of the community, maybe even 2 students. I think that things can be filtered up through the students, up through the teachers, to the principals, and then to the superintendent and to the board. So it's a collaborative effort for the community to, and even if your child says something to you as a parent, to let us know, at a board meeting, to be to make that part of our process.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to turn over the mic to some of our partners. First up is Susan with CPAC.
Okay. Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening. Okay. We have 2 questions, so we'll start with the first one. Many families in our district are increasingly concerned about the amount of time students spend on Chromebooks each day. While technology can be an important learning tool, excessive screen time can be overstimulating, especially for students in special education, such as those with ADHD or other attention-related disabilities. Families are asking for a more balanced approach that supports focus and engagement without over-reliance on screens. How can the board and the superintendent work together to better understand and address these concerns across all grade levels?
Okay. How can this, all right, let's see, to address it across all grade levels. All right, with technology, as you mentioned, there are certainly benefits to having technology, and using it in the correct way is going to be a challenge. Overuse of the technology, overuse of the Chromebooks, overuse of screen time can be very disruptive for not just special ed students, but all students across the board. So I would try and take a look at the data. Take a look at the data, see where we have areas, if there are certain limitations in terms of time per day that we can look at, and that would be where we could set some policy on the board. But this, again, would be an area where we could use some kind of an expert committee to kind of look at this in detail, in depth, and find how to be successful together. This, I don't think going it alone is never the way to find the best solution. I think the more voices that we have to try and work together to find a solution and a specific policy is the best way.
Thank you, Carrie.
We need to study the data and ask questions about what the best use of technology is in the schools, and if students below the age of 8th grade should even have phones in the schools at all. The no phone policy has been working well, but we need to know what the data is and about when we need phones as a safety issue. I think that we need to not have as much reliance on screens and phones, but to focus on the Chromebooks. I mean, the kids take their tests on Chromebooks now. They need to learn to write. They need to learn to do things without their Chromebooks, and the time to do that is in school. They need to socialize on the playground instead of sitting on their phones the whole time. I think that there's a way to do it, but we need to know the data about what works and what doesn't, and we need to implement policies based on data.
As an adjunct professor at Kane University, I trained teachers on how to integrate technology into their current curriculum. It's really critical to look at the best practices. If a child is 5 minutes is all they need to spend on the computer or have screen time. It's really important to integrate the technology because it's important for the students to be able to live in this digital world that we are in. I call the children that are here today, they're digital natives. Okay, I am just someone who came into this digital world, but they were born here, and it's not going to go away, but it's important to know how to integrate the technology. Teachers need to be trained, that you need experts so that you can rely on the best practices in order to assure that we are not overstimulating the children with the technology. Thank you.
Technology is an excellent way of using it in the classrooms and to amplify what a teacher is saying. However, there's a downside. Technology can also stultify brain activity. For example, AI can prevent people from thinking. If you look at an AI subject, it's hard to tell what voice is coming from any particular student. I used to be able to grade papers and know who did what without even looking at the name on the paper, because each student had a way of writing and a way of thinking as individuals. So if technology can enhance the thinking process as opposed to preventing brain activity, then technology would be worthwhile.
One of the things I think about is, we're not seeing the academic outcomes for the students that we'd like to see right now. I do think there does need to be a reassessment of the balance of technology and how that's integrated. Again, my concern would be, are we getting the outcomes for our students, for them to ultimately be critical thinkers, and what's the role of technology in that equation. There's probably, again, as we think about over the last 5 years, how some of the best practices have evolved and changed. There is more data available now. We're in a different environment than we were 5 years ago. So again, my curiosity would be, how do we use available data to make better decisions, to get really strong outcomes and develop more critical thinkers in these young people? Thank you.
Okay, second question. How can the board promote district-wide consistency in special education practices and programs so that the quality of support doesn't depend on which school the child attends? So I think that's to Chrissy, right?
Okay. Could you repeat the question? I did not get the first part.
How can the board promote district-wide consistency in special education practices and programs so that the quality of support does not depend on what school the child attends?
The curriculum has to be the same. It's the model that is being used for a particular magnet program that should differ. But the curriculum for both special education as well as general ed students should be aligned across the district. I stand behind that. That is what I've always done for 40 years. It is critical. It is the only way to assure that the students across the board are getting the same opportunities for learning.
I agree with Yvonne with one addition, that we need to do appropriate professional development for teachers to understand the needs of special ed students, and also to be able to have the appropriate aid within the classroom where there are special ed students. My son had to deal with that, and I had to deal with this Montclair, and especially the high school, for my own son who is a special ed student. And it's up to you as parents also to make sure that your child, if is special ed, is getting the resources appropriately for that child's needs, and to be able to present that to the teachers and the principals and the superintendent.
There's an opportunity for more consistency. I think when you talk to folks, throughout this community, it varies pretty a lot from building to building, teacher to teacher experience, kid to kid, even with this. So how I would approach this as a board member, there's opportunity when I think about the role of the board to set goals for the superintendent. I do think for this issue in particular, around students with special needs, around consistency, would need to work with the board that's in place, but to set clear and measurable goals for the superintendent to drive accountability on this issue. That'd be one way I'd think about approaching driving more consistency to the experience of young people with special needs and their families in this community. Thank you.
I have also heard about some. I think this is a great question. Thank you for asking it. While the curriculum is the same across all the schools, sometimes the way that it's executed is a little bit different across schools, and that includes the special ed experience. And the way that we as the board would be able to help with that would be to encourage specific professional development, like was already mentioned, for the teachers, also to encourage a system for sharing best practices across schools. If a teacher in an inclusion classroom at one school finds a really great method, this is something that they should not keep to themselves. Let's share that. We have great groups like CPAC who join the parents in communicating and finding ways for the parents to work to learn from some of the challenges or obstacles that other parents have faced in developing things like IEPs and 504s. And so I think that having some of those shared practices across schools would also be helpful.
Montclair's magnet schools are a national model, but they require constant care. The original intent was to integrate, innovate, and inspire. We've kept the innovation, but we've lost some of the integration. And integration relates to all types of learning abilities. I think we need to look carefully at the community groups for what they need and how, if at all, the curriculum differs enough so that the students aren't actually getting what they want or what they need across the schools. I think that we need to study that, and I think that the parents need to be the focus of how we can do better as a town.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to invite Bernard Hamilton from the NAACP to ask the next question.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to congratulate you on your willingness to be a part of the be a candidate and representing this township. Most appreciated. The first question is the two-part question. What is your plan for improving the engagement between the Board of Education and the families, especially those who are underrepresented within the community?
Should I start?
I'm going to ask
since
Chrissy.
I missed it last
Would you
time?
start this first? Thank you.
Okay. As a board member, I'll advocate for clear public communication as our modus operandi. That's what I said at the beginning, and I mean it. I want to publish plain language summaries of board actions, hold community forums, and ensure parents and staff have meaningful opportunities to give input before decisions are finalized. I support the board's collaborative relationship with the superintendent and having the private meetings in public so that our community can see how decisions are made has been a phenomenal change in what's been going on. I think that, having meetings that go longer may actually in some ways be good for people to be able to come to meetings and see parts of them, even if they can't stay for the whole thing, or and being able to access them online is also a big help.
Thank you. Yvonne?
That's a great question, and it's something that I have been talking with people in the community about. I think it's really important that we recognize that we have to sometimes go where the people are. And so we have to be a little bit more creative than hosting our board meetings at the annex, every time. We need to move those board meetings around. That's one way. Also, think about small community engagement conversations at NAACP meetings, at the Civil Rights Commission, having the superintendent speak at at churches, synagogues, temples. Sometimes you have to meet the people where they are, and I think it's really a critical time for us to do that. And especially with everything that has come out in the past 4 months, and the community is looking for answers, and they want to know what and why. And I think it's important for us to go where the people are.
Thank you.
I agree entirely with what Yvonne said, that it's up to the community. There are about 70 people here in the room. Why aren't there 150 people? Well, we need to be able to get these people out, everybody in the community, especially parents. And as Yvonne said, various locations in various schools where the board can meet and make it more convenient. These meetings should not stay, until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. We could start a little earlier, perhaps, on some days, or perhaps even have weekend meetings when people are more available.
Milt, I agree. We don't need longer meetings. Oh man. But we do need more accessible meetings. I think that's really important, and on a couple different dimensions, right? So you think about right, the location of the meetings, the time of the meetings. I do think the duration of the meeting does, in some ways, translate to accessibility. Folks right now have a lot going on at home and in life and do not have a lot of time. One of the hypotheses, I believe, for more folks not being out here tonight, folks are busy. So how do you meet folks where they are with communication? So, right, if there's somebody we have to think about email, whether it's through social media, all the different various platforms to be able to reach and communicate to folks. Then I'd say you also need to be able to distill the meetings and use, again, available technology to start to summarize these meetings and make them digestible for folks so more folks have access to the meetings. We do also need to meet folks where they are. We know we have some very strong community partners that have relationships with these folks in the communities, and making sure their voices are represented at the table, and then making sure that we are listening to those voices and engaging with them appropriately. Thank you.
Yes, meeting people where they're at is very important. Varying up the locations will be very helpful. The time of day, even perhaps the committee of the whole will be very helpful in increasing transparency because the meetings will take place in the public. But as Superintendent Turner has said, those meetings are not with the public. They are in front of the public, but not with the public. It's a conversation that we kind of get to be flies on the walls for. So one thing that I really like that Superintendent Turner is doing are holding these town hall meetings. So she's had town hall meetings on the budget updates, and then just last week she had one on the bond referendum update. And these forums are a lot more conducive to some back and forth dialogue. It's not just a one-way conversation where you ask a question or you share a concern and then there's silence from the Board of Ed and the superintendent. But with these town hall meetings, the forum engages a lot better. I think that's everybody.
Next question. What would be your focus and attention? Is good? What would be your focus and attention on addressing the performance gaps within the school system? We've all heard about the gaps on the performances. The percentages have been publicly shared. How were you going to address those performance issues?
I think Milt is up, actually.
And I think we're up to Milt. Would you start us off on that? Mm-hmm.
The achievement gap, that's a good question. I really think that it's from the bottom up. Teachers, the superintendent needs to make sure that the teachers are adhering to the curriculum in an appropriate way. in dealing with various students and making sure that the teacher relays information about their students to the appropriate person in guidance and so forth, so that where a student is struggling, to be able to get that person, that student, the additional resources that are necessary to make sure that he or she is achieving at the appropriate level.
So this is certainly one of the most important issues as a community that we can put some energy around. It has been, and I think someone said it's been one that's been pretty persistent in the community that really identifies and champions how much it loves diversity. There's some real work that needs to be done to address this. And it's really critical. When I think about the crisis that we're dealing with, the crisis I think about is the achievement gap that we have in this community. It's a really important one. So we're just making progress on universal pre-K. That's one that's really, really important to continue to expand and support. Early intervention, really, really critical and important. We're just making progress on that early detection in the K through third grade. We also think about the additional resources for algebra and for reading and writing in the middle and the high schools. Really, really important. We're supporting young people with these resources to do this. And then as well as our high performers that are ready for AP classes, making sure we're supporting those students at the top as well. But
Thank you,
this is one
Sean.
that does require more time, more energy. This is one of the most important crises in this community we can address. Thank you.
The last time that we did an audit on this, the achievement gap was in 2015. It was a comprehensive audit. It looked back at 4 years of data. The findings at the time found that there were significant differences, even as low as the very first time that there were standardized testing. So that's down to third grade. From that achievement gap audit, there were a number of recommendations that came out of it. One of them was the pre-K, and that has started to take off. I know with some of the budget cuts, there was a concern that maybe that would go away, but it seems that we're holding true to that. And that was one of the big identifying factors in ways that we can improve, just starting very early on. Another thing would be with course selection as they get older, starting in middle school, actually, it helps to do some kind of academic planning across the board so that folks understand the value of taking some higher level classes and AP classes.
History is repeating itself without taking to heart the important lessons of Montclair's past. We had ambitious desegregation and we continue to talk about diversity, yet we have the stubborn durability of an achievement gap. Our population has earned national attention for its innovative approaches, yet systematic disparities by race and class widen rather than disappear. Why? Because of factors outside the classroom: housing, income, access to enrichment, and differential treatment within the schools. They've all continued to drive unequal outcomes. Efforts to address those realities, detracking, expanding equity offices, data-driven interventions, and repeated public battles over policy and governance signal our serious commitment. However, these efforts also underscore how politically and socially fraught corrections require long-term coordinated actions across the schools, families, and municipal systems. Montclair's history since 1974 shows that diversity alone is not a remedy. Without sustained systematic investment in equitable resources, culturally responsible instruction, and targeted early grade supports, the promise of integration will remain unrealized for the district's most vulnerable students. We have to do better by tapping into the genius of the community once again. I'm living proof that our magnet system...
We are running a little over time, so I'm going to ask you to try to keep your answers succinct. Thank you.
15 years ago, there was a study, and I can say that I know that as a board, we are committed to assuring that we make attempts to close that opportunity gap. There have been systems in place. Professional development has been ongoing during the time that I've served on the board. The multi-tiered systems of support is being implemented. Teachers have been trained We have curriculum support teachers that have been trained in that method. And so I think we are beginning to address it. Do we have more work to do? Absolutely. Absolutely. The students of color, they are definitely behind, even though we have seen gains across the district, not only with students of color, but also with students in general. And I think it's important that we say that the teachers are working to close that gap. It's really important that we give them the kudos that they deserve.
Yvonne.
Thank you.
May I speak again? May I add something?
If you can do.
I would like to point out that when I was teaching, I had decided that to divide my class up into teams of 3 and 4 students. They learn very well from each other. And what I did was, it was difficult at the beginning, to get them to work this way. But after a couple of weeks, they began to enjoy it. And what I was able to see was that a leader in each team would take charge. And that student would be able to teach the other kids in a way that I couldn't. So I could teach to the class, but those other children were able to interpret what I said in a way that the others would learn from themselves. And it worked very, very well. And the poor students became better students as a result.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite up Rabina Spence from out Montclair.
Good evening, everyone. I have a question that I'm going to read slowly because it has some numbers in there and government policy numbers. Please describe your understanding of New Jersey District Policy 5756 that aims to protect trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming students, and New Jersey law against discrimination, NJLAD, which prohibits discrimination based on gender identity or expression in schools, along with the New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. Please explain why you are or are not committed to upholding these policies and laws, and that the teachers and administrators do so as well.
Sean, will you start us off?
Yeah, I fully support upholding those that policy. I'm not familiar with that policy in specific, but it really is for me important to make sure that all kids in the school district are safe in the schools, full stop. And the teachers and the buildings are supported to be able to bring the consistency and support for the young people in the district. Thank you.
I also am fully committed to ensuring that all students are able to learn in a safe educational environment that's free from discrimination. I know the New Jersey law against discrimination, it requires schools to take action that reasonably calculated to end harassment and prevent it from recurring. We also in Montclair are a special place because all 3 of our middle schools and our high school is already established as no place for hate. They're involved in that program. So there's always work to be done, but we in Montclair are sitting in a pretty good position right now. So I feel good about that, and I want to make sure that that continues. Also on the personal side, I have a trans niece in California who's a high schooler, so this hits close to home for me too. So thank you for the question.
Every student deserves to feel safe, seen, and valued, and there can be no exceptions to that. I support policies that affirm gender identity, protect student privacy, and include LGBTQ voices in curriculum and staff and training. We can't just rely on policy language, though. We need a culture change, and that starts with leadership. I would advocate for professional development of all staff, review of anti-bullying practices that work and what doesn't, and visible signals of inclusion across all schools. When our LGBTQ and plus students know that they belong. Every student benefits. That's what a healthy, modern public school system should look like.
Every student deserves to feel safe and valued in any place near or in a school building here in New Jersey. And when they are not feeling safe, they should feel that they have someone to report that information to. And we should act on it. Every person is a human being, and it is important for us to treat one another with kindness, with love, and with respect. And this is the curriculum that we should be formulating and making sure that when they come to school that they are feeling safe and valued and able to be whoever it is that God has made them to be. And so it's important that staff and parents and children recognize that the HIB law is something that should be upheld, and it should be definitely more staff development, parent development around that topic. Thank you.
I totally agree, and it's important that we make sure that, as has been said, that every student is safe, and to take steps to make sure that that happens.
Thank you. And next, I'd like to invite up Madeline Gale, Commissioner of the Civil Rights Commission.
Hi. My question also is about safety. What policies and actions do you propose to positively impact student safety, especially in light of potential cuts to staff charged with student safety, such as operational aides, nurses, school counselors, and restorative justice teachers? What actions do you plan to advocate for to maintain and improve safety in the schools?
Students need to feel that they are safe in order to have a learning environment that can be positive. So I think safety in schools is extremely important. We will, depending on the way that the budget vote goes in December, we may or may not have some of the reductions in all of the things that you listed. But it does appear that cuts are coming, and we would need to be really thoughtful in how to ensure that we can have safety across the way, whether that would be the Board of Ed outlining specific professional development that might need to happen if those positions are cut and staff needs training that hasn't been assigned this kind of task in the past, then this will be something that they would need to be able to do in the future. Safety is incredibly important.
Students don't just need to feel safe, they need to be safe. And there are minimum basic standards that need to be followed in all of our schools, including having a nurse, not in every school, but at least a district nurse, so that, and properly trained people so that we can deal with emergencies of all types.
Nurses, operational aides, RJ teachers, and people in general who provide the safe and welcoming experience here in schools are necessary. It's important that we recognize that without them, students will feel unsafe. And so it's really important that as we begin to think about cuts, that we know that cuts are not going to be able to make the grade that is necessary for the students to feel safe. So it's really important that as we move forward, that we think of creative ways to assure the safety of the students, whether it's nurses, no cuts, RJ teachers, no cuts, operational aides, no cuts, no cuts, no cuts.
I think it's the board's responsibility to set policy on this issue, that it is the job of the superintendent to make sure that those policies are adhered to and that every teacher, every aide, every person who, even the maintenance people, are aware of the situation, and to make sure that those people report the appropriate, inappropriate behavior of anything that's going on in any school, or the issues of safety, nursing and so forth. I worked in buildings in districts where there was a police officer, off-duty police officers were in various schools to make sure that things were done appropriately. But it really is the superintendent who is supposed to make sure that those policies are adhered to.
So, right, our kids can't learn if they don't feel safe, right? Like physical safety, social, emotional safety, psychological safety, all really important and intertwined. One of the reasons I think it's important, and I do think about the upcoming vote in December, for me, voting yes, yes, and prioritizing local control really important as we think about those things in our community that are really important to keeping our kids safe, and how we shape the budget cuts and making sure they're in service of making sure they deliver the academic outcomes that are also tied to keeping our kids safe in this community. Thank you.
And that concludes our questions for the night. I want to recognize and appreciate all of the team members who helped to put this forum together tonight. I'm going to start first with our timekeeper. Yvette Frazier's in the front, keeping us just about on time, right? And also Ted Graham, Vice President of the PTA Council, was instrumental in helping us shape the questions, formulate the questions for tonight. Melissa Thorpe is our treasurer from the PTA Council. I'm sorry, we were limited in the amount of time that we had, and we tried to make... We only have the time booked until 9 o'clock, and we're over that time. We did, in our flyers and in our publicity, provide a QR code. The questions that we asked were based on the questions... We're going to sit here, we're going to talk amongst ourselves, and we're not going to listen to anyone who's got questions. I'm sorry. You're welcome, after we finish our formal session, to continue your conversations outside. I cannot hold anyone here. As I said, we were allocated the time until 9 o'clock, so I appreciate your patience. We did make that QR code available in all of our publicity so that the community could submit questions, not only from our organizations, but to the wider community as well. And the questions that we asked tonight were based on those that we received from our community. We tried to address questions that were most pertinent to the various organizations that helped to sponsor tonight's forum, recognizing that there have been other forums, interviews, other opportunities for the candidates to respond to other questions, and try to cover the issues. So I'm going to proceed to continue to thank other members of the team. Debbie Villarreal Headley is our immediate past president of PTAC. Mike Brown.
If you want to reach out to any of us, I'm sure we're all available to answer your questions individually. I know I'll say my phone number right now. It's 201. Yeah. We're all
Mike
happy
Brown
to
is our recording secretary for the PTA Council.
By the school.
And from our partner organizations, I neglected to mention Susan Gardner-Zartman, who represents the Montclair CPAC. Bernard Hamilton is the political action chair for the NAACP. Rubina Spence is founder and co-chair of Out Montclair, and Madeline Gale is our civil rights commissioner. Thank you all very much for your time tonight.